Ticket to Ride Europe is a set collection, card management, train and route building game where players take on the role of avid travellers and transport system managers as they travel across the beautiful countryside of Europe as they try to claim routes and fulfill destination tickets by connecting important European cities together. The player with the most efficient transport system in Europe and garners the most victory points will be declared the winner of the game. Preparing for a game of Ticket to Ride Europe is quite simple. Go to your travel agent, have them book you a holiday and book some hotels and some tours. Wait a minute, I think I'm mixing my holiday fantasies up with this board game review. In order to set up the board game Ticket to Ride Europe, players need to simply collect all of their train and station coloured pieces. They need to place their score marker at the beginning of the victory point track and draw 4 cards per player, which forms their opening hand from the train card deck. From the same deck, players then flip up to 5 of the train carriage cards face up, and this forms the selection of coloured train cards that players will be able to choose from turn to turn. The combination of coloured train cards will determine which routes you'll be able to claim and place your trains on the map of Europe. The European Express card is then placed out in front of all players, which helps one player score an extra 10 points at the end of the game if they have the longest contiguous line of trains in the same colour. Each player is then dealt 1 long route, which is denoted by a blue background, and 3 short route cards, which is denoted by a brown background. Players then need to decide which 2 routes they'd like to keep. It is important to note here that any uncompleted destination ticket cards will incur a penalty at the end of the game, meaning players will lose victory points equal to the amount listed on the card. On a player's turn for an action, players can draw up to 2 cards from the train car row, unless it's a locomotive, in which case they can only draw 1. Alternatively, players can draw 2 cards from the top of the train car deck. The disadvantage to this is that players will not know what colours they will be drawing. If there are ever 3 locomotive cards in the train car row, the entire train car row is refilled and replaced. Just like the front of a confectionery store window, the train car cards come in 8 different vivid colours. In addition to this, the locomotive card functions as a wild coloured card that can be any of the 8 different colours. It is like the chameleon of all train carriages. Another action that players will attempt to resolve is to claim a route by playing a set of coloured train car cards from their hand that matches the colour of the route that they want to complete in length and colour on the map. Grey coloured routes may be fulfilled by a set of trains of the same colour of the player's choosing. When players claim a route, they score for the route by referring to the scorecard and move their victory point marker the appropriate number of spaces around the score track. The longer the route that players score, the more victory points they will yield. It is important to note that routes that are claimed by players do not need to be connected to previously completed routes. Some connections on the board have 2-track connections known as a double route. When completing these, players can only claim one of these routes for themselves, but not both. A player will never be able to own both tracks in a double route. Another action that players can take on their turn is to opt on their turn to draw 3 destination cards and keep at least one of them. By filtering through the deck, players can try and find destination connections that help them to score important victory points. This action has its own risks and rewards. The major risk here is that players may draw destination cards that they cannot fully fulfill by the end of the game. Alternatively, players may be extremely lucky and draw destination cards that they can fulfill very quickly to score some very important victory points. Nevertheless, any unfulfilled or unconnected destination tickets will incur penalty equal to the number of victory points listed on that destination card. If you thought travelling across land was the only way to go, now players can expand their infrastructure and claim ferry routes. To claim a ferry route marked by grey rectangles across the water, players will need to play train cars of the same colour. In addition, they'll also need to play locomotive cards for each locomotive symbol on the route that they wish to claim. Furthermore, players can exploit the beauty of the tunnels between cities as indicated by the tunnel outline symbols on the board. Claiming a tunnel can be risky, as players will never be quite certain as to how long the tunnel will be, so it's a risk versus reward situation. To claim a tunnel, players need to lay out a number of coloured trains of the same colour equal to the length of the route. The top 3 cards from the train card deck are then drawn, and for each same coloured card revealed that matches the one used to claim the tunnel, that player will need to play an additional identical coloured card from their hand, or a locomotive for each matching colour that is shown. Players can also complete tunnels using only locomotives as well. The same rules, however, do apply. Players on their turn can also decide to build a train station by paying 1 train card of any colour and placing a station in their chosen city. Subsequent stations that players play cost 2 for their second station and 3 for their third station. It allows players to use a pre-established route belonging to another player in order to complete a destination card. Train stations provide players with a greater amount of options when attempting to complete a connection that matches the destination cards in players' hands. The stations provide greater flexibility for strengthening their transport system. After a player's supply of trains reduces down to just 2 or less left, the endgame is triggered and each player gets a final turn. Players then add up their completed destination ticket points, they get points for unbuilt train stations, and 10 extra points if they had the longest contiguous connection. These are added onto players' current scores on the victory point track. The player with the highest score wins the game. Building an efficient transport system strategy in Ticket to Ride Europe is like choosing your favourite type of pasta. I mean, do you choose spaghetti because it's straight and easy? Or do you choose the more complex spiral pasta and lay down a complex tactical strategy that will hopefully outwit and outplay your opponents? No matter what shape your pasta is or what colour or type of route you're trying to establish, creating the best connection points and positions for your train networks is crucial for winning the game. When trying to navigate the map of Europe for the first time, one simply does not need to attach Google Maps or a primitive street directory to their brain to understand it. It is, however, a clustered network of tendrils that looks both as colourful as it is dauntingly beautiful. In examining the map of Europe, each coloured connection on the map has routes that are 1 to 2 segments or 3 to 4 segments long. In addition, there are more longer grey coloured routes on the eastern side of Europe compared to the western side. There are 2 particular routes that are 6 segments long and 1 route that is 8 segments long. The long route from St. Petersburg to Stockholm is particularly risky because it is a tunnel route. Players will need to take a gamble because they'll need to save up multiple copies of the same coloured car and locomotives in order to complete this high victory point yielding route. Now, it's really important to approach each game of Ticket to Ride Europe with a pair of geographical pants on, geographical thinking caps on, and let's see whether understanding the layout of the map can help us build a really good strategy to win a game of Ticket to Ride Europe. Firstly, knowing where the critical and central routes are located can help establish a really strong network early on, especially if you have to try and connect 2 destination cities that are on either ends of the board. So setting up those important central routes early on in the game ensures that you don't get blocked out later in the game. You can always complete those periphery routes later on. It is also important not to neglect all of the longer routes because they often yield you the most victory points. Also, try to nab up the locomotives as soon as possible as they provide you with more transport flexibility. Think of it as the first class of rail travel. Also, try and select destination tickets that are partially completed by the other players so you can fully exploit the use of your train station. And finally, securing the grey routes are quite easy to do as they only require 1 set of any coloured carriage. What I really like about Ticket to Ride Europe is that it is a really great next level up board game from the original base game. It's got an extra layer of depth and complexity to it, and some of the decisions that players encounter and situations they encounter in this game require a little bit more strategic and tactical thinking. I also like how the game introduces a new variety of ways to actually claim routes. So you've got your tunnels now, which is kind of like your push your luck element. You've got your ferries, which kind of gives you an incentive to use those locomotive cards from the train card deck. And you've also got your stations, which increases the flexibility and adaptability of your ability to build around everybody else's train networks. And it does reduce the amount of choking points that exist towards the end of the game, and the fact that if you do play a train station, you do not get the 4 points at the end of the game. So there's that kind of risk versus reward effect, and is it worth connecting particular routes to finish a card compared to getting the 4 points, players need to constantly weigh that up. I also really like the map of Europe itself and how they've incorporated some of the route designs into the map. I also like how they've separated the short and long destination ticket cards into separate piles, which kind of reduces the randomness of drawing a short destination ticket compared to a long destination ticket. I also think that the game does evoke a different sort of feeling and kind of directs players along a different line of playstyle at the different play counts. In the 2-player version, because the map is so large, players are just going to be really doing their own thing. So it's kind of got this much more racing feel effect at the 2-player level, where players are just trying to efficiently complete destination cards as quickly as possible, and there's less chances for players to kind of get in each other's way. Whereas at the 4 to 5 player count, there's huge amounts of blocking, interrupting, and players will have to try and navigate their way around everybody else's network, and it does feel a little bit crowded. So at either end of the spectrum, the player count does kind of influence the type of game that you're going to see. There are some points to consider if you're thinking about getting Ticket to Ride Europe for your board game collection. First of all, there is a high element of luck when it comes to building things like tunnels or drawing cards from the top of the train card deck. And if you're not someone who works well with luck in their board games, this is a game that you probably should try before you buy it. Sometimes when you try to build a tunnel, you can suffer from the luck of a bad card draw and, drawing particular colors that force you to play extra cards from your hand that you don't actually have can really set you back. So that risk versus reward situation is quite high when you're trying to connect tunnel routes. Also, there's not many different long destination ticket cards that comes in the base game of the Europe version. So I do suggest getting the 1912 expansion, which does add extra long distance cards to the actual destination deck. Also, when you're playing this game at a 2-player level, there is a reduced level of tension on the map, and some people really prefer that, but if you don't prefer that, it's definitely one where you play at a 4-player or 5-player level where there's a lot more going on, a lot more tension in terms of blocking all the different routes off. So if you're someone that wants an elevated level of tension, then definitely play it at the 4-player level. Otherwise, at the 2-player level, it's a pretty friendly, casual affair. Also, if you don't like the fact that the stations reduce the level of blocking in this version of the game, then you might want to opt for the original Ticket to Ride game, or you can simply just play Ticket to Ride Europe with the original rules from the original game. So in considering my final verdict, Ticket to Ride Europe is a really great family game that really has an excellent table presence. There's enough variety in the decision making, strategic and tactical thinking opportunities in this game to really kind of appeal to most experienced gamers as well as new gamers alike. Thank you once again for joining me for another Board Game Sanctuary video. If you really like this video, please make sure you pay your ticket, hop on the Board Game Sanctuary train and hit the like, subscribe and share button. All support is truly and humbly appreciated. I want to say a huge thank you and shout out to all the people who continually support and watch my videos and this channel. I really thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is Danny signing out. I'll see you guys again soon in the near future. Goodbye.